Try that again.
But I guess something, if you're doing something.
If you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, you always get criticism that comes with it. I'm a jazz musician, which is not supposed to be. If I stand up on somebody, I said, I'm a jazz musician, and they will say, really? You know, I'm sure that there were those days. So you will get some criticism, things like that. But when you're doing, quote unquote, is not supposed to be doing, and it was perhaps maybe pioneer, so to speak, they didn't have any women-led big band. So you get all those criticism that comes with it, and you have to take everything.
She's 92. So, you know, we're talking about, she was 26 in 1956, something like that, you know. And those are, we thought actually, we wanted to play a little bit of that to see what kind of feedback we might get from you as well on those ideas, and that, and maybe even we could explore that in something we might do together, you know, whatever. We'll let you decide, but you know, it would, that's sort of the time that we're in now, you know, this whole idea of masculine and feminine and sexual identity. The whole thing is just, you know, it's moving into a whole nother thing now. So I think it's very timely, you know. And also, I studied also, I have to say this, with Mary Lou Williams. She was one of my teachers. So when I was 19 years old, I used to go up to Harlem and hang out at her apartment. And, you know, she was really proud that she's in her, you know, they thought I was a man. People listen to me, they think I'm a man, you know. So, and she was saying that like boasting in that way, you know. So the whole idea, it's just very complex and interesting.
Sumi, who wrote that?
I actually wrote that song. I wrote that song pretty young. I was about 18 or 19, and I played that at my first lesson with Mary Lou Williams. I really wanted to study with Mary Lou because I was also a Mary Lou Williams fan. And I remember my mom saying, I said, I wish I could study with someone like her. And my mom said, why don't you look her up in the phone book? And I remember calling, well, I actually ended up getting the New York operator, and she gave me her phone number. Operator, whoa, that was a long time ago. And before you know it, I'm taking the train with my mom up to Mary Lou's apartment in Harlem. We had to walk through, I remember walking through the snow in Central Park to get there. And because she said, you know, she said, come on up. And I remember before I even touched the keys, before she even permitted me to touch the piano, she was definitely setting me up, because she said, you know, Thelonious Monk, Bud Powell, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, this is where they sat. This is where we hung out. And she made it real clear to me whose hands had touched those keys. Woo! And I was just like so nervous. And I played her a tune, and this tune, It Will Be Blue, and she thought it was a Herbie Hancock composition, which I was very flattered about, but then she said, here, move over. And she played it back to me, note for note. And she said, don't play this section like this. And then I had been playing the tail end of that piece like this. I'll just play my right hand first. So with the bass line, it sounds. She said, no, don't play it like that. Play it like this. Yes, Mary Lou. I mean, it was no wasted words. And she was kind of like that. You know, I would sit next to her when she played. She would play for me and have me sit right. And I think she learned that way. Her mom taught her on her lap. That's how Mary Lou learned from her mom.
What was jazz to you, maybe, at that time? When you were
to me, jazz was a art that expressed a certain kind of freedom. You know, and it was about beauty and truth. And I know that sounds so kind of quaint in a way, but it is that, though. It is that, and it's in the field of, you know, it's in the sonic field, so it has to do with vibrations and the sound. I definitely identify jazz as a great player having a sound. Mm-hmm. You know, and that is part of your voice, is that sound. Just like with a pianist, it's your touch, you know, and that touch is your sound in a way. Mm-hmm. And that, for me, jazz was a natural path because it was a way of being able to express yourself. And I think with my mother's identity and her search and the whole thing, what happened with the internment, I wanted to try to capture some of that, because that was something she carried, and I felt like I could address it musically. At least it would be something that I could try to address musically. You know, I don't know if I would be successful or not. And in that path of doing that, I included my mother's prose, and she was in the piece, right? But also, I realized that I hadn't been interned. My mother had been interned, you know, and that sat with me in a certain kind of way. Well, how can I write music if that hadn't happened to me directly?
I think jazz, for me, in a way also is freedom. And I knew, even musically, that so different from my classical upbringing. And somehow I knew, even like throughout Stanford and becoming an opera singer, when I started improvising,
something clicked.
Yeah, and just the whole journey of like, what is my voice?
When I was living in Australia and just starting to play jazz, I used to listen to the album Night and the City by pianist Kenny Barron and bassist Charlie Hayden. I remember listening to the track Body and Soul over and over again. I can sing all the solos. The first time I got to play with Kenny Barron was at the Dakota in Minneapolis. I was so in awe of him and so excited to play with him, and we actually played the same song, Body and Soul. And I was so nervous, and I looked over at Kenny and he was so relaxed, his beautiful touch and sophisticated Kenny-isms. And I was like, just let it go. It's not about me. It's about the moment. And I think sometimes when you work so hard and always think about who you really want to play with, or I'd really love to have this gig, or whatever, it's not about the gig. It's about the moment and really being there for one another in the ensemble.
How you're coming to, I'm asking you how you perceive, how you're coming to this place in your own development of having authority in your own voice.
Right. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think, you know, being an artist, being a musician, it's definitely not easy. It's, I feel like one really has to be resourceful and actually think about what you want to do.
When I was 10 years old, I was a guest with Clark Terry at the Wichita, Kansas Jazz Festival. And that's when I met my good friend, Diane Reeves. I was 10 and she was 19. And actually I met a lot of great people there. Buddy Rich, Eddie Lockjaw Davis, Patrice Rushen, and Louis Belson, who was the drummer. I had to play his drum kit with 2 big bass drums, and my feet could barely touch the pedals. And it was the first time I ever got paid to play, actually, as well. This sparked my long-term friendship with Diane, and we've been friends for 47 years now. At the end of our time together, Diane pulled me aside into the dressing room, said she wanted to talk to me, and I got really nervous because at the time, whenever somebody wanted to talk to me, I felt like I was in trouble. So I started looking up in the air, and she asked me why I was doing that. And I said, well, because you're probably going to say something bad. And she said, no, not at all. I just want to tell you that you're beautiful. Please don't ever change, and just keep that beautiful spirit. And I was so moved by this and our new friendship that I cried all the way home from Wichita to Boston. And my parents were like, what is wrong with her? How would my sound develop if I wasn't always trying to sound like the next guy? You know, always in the back of my mind, does she hit hard enough? You know, like, you know, that's always like in the back of the mind, because that's the first thing that people think about, you know, with this instrument.
Yeah.
But the one thing I think I noticed sometime in my 30s was I developed a cymbal sound that I liked. That was personal.
Right.
And that was, you know, it was never like what I played, licks or vocabulary, but just the cymbal sound. And then I developed in a way of what I felt was aggressive but seductive at the same time. So like,
interesting words. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, just because like I feel like that's how you capture someone's attention. There's a certain art of seduction that has to happen, I think, musically, as well as any other.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like you're not hitting somebody always over the head with something.
Right.
Which was kind of my natural instinct, but then I figured out how to do that with the cymbals, kind of reel it in, even when I was playing strong, but push it like still so that you're able to kind of like not force something, but how do I say that? Not a force or not aggressive, but you're able to guide and shape and control dynamics and do all these things, but with an open hand.
I like that. Beautiful.
And if you can introduce yourself.
I'm delighted to be here. My name is Genny Lim. I'm a poet, playwright, educator, activist. But in jazz, I never saw any Asian women, you know, other than Toshiko, and she actually was born in Japan and was playing in Japan, like Bud Powell, before she came here. And, you know, you had, Teramasa Hino and Suzuki who played with, Art Blakey, but homegrown jazz musicians didn't happen until, like way later in, the 90s, 80s, 90s, and they had John Jang, Francis Wong, but, and people will take notice. If you have authority, you have the authority of your own voice. Nobody else has the authority of your voice. And so you true to yourself. You have authority because you're authentic. I've had this for maybe almost 4 decades. And it's a skirt that I got in an antique shop when I was portraying La China Poblana. And I want to bequeath this to you because it has really fond memories of a production about a little girl who was kidnapped and brought on a Spanish galleon to Mexico. And she was raised in Puebla, and I portrayed La China Poblana in a piece with Francis Wong playing live in the piece as one of the musicians, and Herbie Lewis, bassist. So this is going to be yours. You're the new La China.
Oh my gosh.
La China Poblana.
Thank you, Genny.
I love you.
So beautiful. I love you too. Poems by Genny Lim. And Genny Lim was a really important mentor for me, one of my first non-male mentors, I could say. This is 20 years ago now, but 2003, she has actually inscribed it. It says, "For Jen, my muy jazz sister, Genny." And muy it means little sister in Cantonese. But so when we interviewed her, it was really incredible that I thanked her. I said, "Thank you for mentoring me," and this is what she said to me. I feel like I never
gave you anything.
Really
gave you anything.
I was just
who I was.
Being with you.
Being with you.
I think
I'm good at that. Holding up a mirror for people. And what they see, they bring themselves. Whatever they learn,
they're learning
from within. They're learning from themselves.
I'm just showing them what they can do, what they can see, what they can find within them.
And it's really great to have you here. And this is, like, for me, one of the most exciting parts about, doing what we're doing is to be able to actually engage with younger people. I mean, because you're the ones that are going to be carrying the flame, and moving it forward. And no matter, even if you're not an artist, like even if you're just someone who's an avid fan of the music or just a person who's curious, like just those things, like what we can somehow give you to empower you is like really, there's just as much we have to learn from you. It's a circle of energy when it's at its best.
I do like side jobs, like play some rock and jazz, but mainly focus on like classic drums, percussion, vibraphone.
The silences inherited, they come to us in gestures, in sideways glances, as if I should know the labyrinth of pain. Who hurt you? For you to continue the harm to me, and now I've inherited more than just your cheekbones.
다시 맛도 되는 Take your calling, you show up for yourself. To whom do we sing? Which room do I make? Who speaks? Do I tell?